No. How about that? I was on mute. What did I do that for? Good morning, Thrive Church. How are you doing? All right. Good morning, online Facebook. That's just cool, isn't it? Like, people everywhere are going to be joining in on Facebook, too. That's going to be cool. Hey, quick confession. This year, I am going to turn 40 years old. Whoa, 40 years old. Now, I've gotten two reactions so far. The younger people that I know are like, dang, you're old. I was like, thank you. That is great. I got gray in the beard. I don't need my ID anymore at the store when I buy a bottle of wine. I just show them this. I'm like, see, that's enough. And then the older folks that I know, they're like, wow, you're so young. You're just like a little pup. I'm just like stuck, It's like the older people think I'm young, the younger people think I'm old, and I'm just 40. I don't know where I'm at. But being 40 means that I grew up in the 80s. Y'all remember the 80s? That was fun, wasn't it? Like 80s was interesting. One particular memory came back to me this week as I was preparing for today's message about heroes. And that was in 1987. I got dressed up in my jammies. They were like this light brown plaid that was like poly, like this shirt. Looked exactly like this shirt. I noticed last time I was like, looked like this, but with matching pants, right? It was like I get dressed in my awesome plaid jammies, and we jump in the Woody station wagon, because you got to have the Woody station wagon, and we drove to the drive-in movie theater. That was like the best thing ever. You get to pull into a parking spot in front of this big screen. You roll down your window a little bit. You bring a speaker on the inside of your car that's connected with that like old phone wire thing. And then you can either roll up the window and listen in the privacy of your own vehicle. Or what we used to do is we used to like back in, and I would lay on top of the roof of the back part of the Woody station wagon, and I would watch. I'd lay on my blanket, and I had my popcorn, and I was watching Superman 4. Yes. Y'all remember Superman 4, Christopher Reeve as Superman and Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor? That was like the greatest movie of my childhood. I watched all the Supermans, and they were amazing. It wouldn't be Supermen, because that would be more Supermen. Supermans sounds awkward, but that's what it is. We watched all of them. I always loved those movies. And Superman in this movie, he like took all the nuclear weapons and then like fired them into outer space, and he caught them and he put them in this big net and he whipped it around. And he threw it at the sun and it blew up, and it was amazing. And he won the story. And I remember at the end of that movie, like the credits start rolling, and I jumped off of the car. I'm on the ground, and if you got kids and you watch a movie, you know that the minute the movie's done, they're hyped up and they become the characters, right? All of a sudden, my fist is out, because that's how Superman flies, with the fist out. And I am running around the car as fast as I can, because I am now Superman. And I have then deemed my little brother Lex Luthor, because that's what little brothers' jobs are for. They are the Lex Luthors so that we can be Superman. And I'm running around the car, and it's great, and we go home, and I dream of flying and Superman. And then I go to school the next day, and everything is ruined. Everything's ruined. My teacher gets up, she's like, all right, so here's what we're going to do this week. You're going to spend the week writing an essay. It's like, okay, I can write an essay. And at the end of the week, y'all are going to read it in front of the class to one another. And I'm like, are you freaking serious? Like, I got to get up in front of people and talk? No way. I'm the quiet kid, the insecure kid, the one who sits in the corner, and I got like 2 friends, and that is more than enough, right? It's like, that's all that I need was my 2 bros. I am not the kid to get up and stand in front of people and talk to them. Funny thing, that's what I do for a living now. But I am not that person. Like in 5th grade, I'm freaking out. Like, this is awful. I lost like my stomach. It dropped into the big toe of my left leg. And it stayed there all week in dread. I'm nauseous. I'm sweating. I'm envisioning disaster happening. Like I get up and mispronounce a word or something, and the world ends. And I'm just horrified about this. So I write my essay on snakes. I don't even know why I chose snakes, but I chose it on snakes. I don't like snakes, but I chose snakes. And I write this big essay, big as in like a half page. And I wrote this essay, and then the day comes. That whole night before the day you got to read it was awful. Didn't sleep. I'm nauseous, sick to my stomach, and the cold sweats, and it's like, this is horrible. And I get up the next morning, and it's twice as bad. And then I get to school, and it's like 3 times as bad. And it's like, oh, we're going to do that after lunch and after recess. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I got to think through this whole thing all day, and I'm worried and nauseous and sick. Didn't enjoy lunch, didn't enjoy recess, and then we're sitting there, and the first kid gets up, and they read it. Like, oh, second kid gets up, and they read it, and the third kid gets up, and they read it, and the fourth, and the fifth. And I'm just dreading when I hear my name, and then I heard it. It's like, oh, and I get up, and I'm trembling. I am trembling, and I hide behind my piece of paper. Like, I put it right in front of my face so I couldn't see anybody, and I'm trembling, and my voice is quivering, and I'm freaking out, and I read the entire essay, and I sat down in my chair, and I nearly passed out. I was like, it's done. It's over. It felt like Frodo, like at the end, I've done it. It's over. Or another thing, I felt like when I put the kids to bed at night, like, oh gosh, we made it. We didn't die today. Right? Like, that's how I felt all week. And I was reflecting on those 2 stories this week, and I wonder, where was the kid who was running around the car thinking he was Superman at the time when I just had to get up and read an essay in front of my class of maybe 30 kids? Where'd that kid go? The kid who could fly. The kid in his plaid pajamas who could take on Radioactive Man and win. Where'd that kid go when he had to get up and read 100 words in front of 30 kids? I don't know. But I lost my nerve, and I thought, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the skills necessary to take on life. I am not a hero. I don't have the superpowers to do this. And it all came crashing into that very real moment. I don't have what it takes. So I start dreaming of being a superhero, because that's a lot easier. We actually threw a poll on Facebook this week, and I asked you guys, if you could choose a superhero power, which one would it be? And we had flight, invisibility, strength, speed, and talking to fish. Because, that's what Aquaman does. I don't really know what Aquaman does other than that, but that's what he does. And most of y'all picked flight. And I got to say, I would have picked flight too, because all of my favorite dreams are flying. When I wake up and I was like, that was the coolest dream ever, it's always because I was flying. We have these things in our head that say, if I had a superpower, then I can take on my life. If I could fly, if I had invisibility, if I had super strength, if I had the ability to talk to, no, probably not the fish one, but if we had superpowers, then we would be enough. And we can take on life as we see it, right? Well, maybe we don't think superpowers, but we think, if I just had the things that I don't have now, then I could take on life. If I had more leadership, if I had more money, if I had more time or power, if I had a different position of authority or education or opportunity, if I had something that I don't have now, then I could take on life. Thinking that hero is a noun that belongs to everybody else but us. But what if hero is a verb that can belong to those who just step up to life as it is with what they have? Because heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Hero can be a small elderly woman of color that refuses to give up her seat on a bus one day and sparks an entire civil rights movement that changes and heals a nation that is still in process. To a fireman who's big and burly and walks into a flaming building and brings a family of 3 out to survive? What if the spectrum of heroism is people taking their everyday lives, what they have at their disposal today, and just stepping up to the plate with it? What if that's what a hero is? If that's what a hero is, then heroism is within all of our grasp. I love what Superman said. Christopher Reeve, who is pretty much Superman in my book. Christopher Reeve said this about his character, Superman. What makes Superman a hero is not that he has power, but that he has the wisdom and the maturity to use the power wisely. From an acting point of view, that's how I approached this part. Holy cow, is there any better wisdom to offer us in this series on heroes than to just step up with the power that we do have, step into it with wisdom and maturity? That's what heroes do. So this week we're going to look at this series we're going to look at different heroes of the Bible and learn that they're actually not superhuman. They're not super spiritual people that are way beyond us, and then we're over here kind of, I could never do what Moses did. I could never do what Nehemiah or Hannah or Rahab. I could never do those things because they're like way beyond me with some super spiritual awesomeness that I don't possess. The crazy thing is that these are just everyday, ordinary people that step up to the plate of life as it is with what they have. That's all they did. And God chose to use them in that way. So this week we're going to be looking at Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is this cool guy in the story of the Bible. It's a whole story, right? God chooses a people, makes them a nation in order to make God known to the whole world. This is what God is like. So he chooses his people to do that, to reveal God to the whole world. He chooses them, he brings them out of slavery, puts them as a nation. They get a king, they get blessed, they got riches, they got power, they got fame. They're like the jewel of the whole earth. They obtain the spot that everyone wants geographically. It's just like they've got it all. People are coming from all over and looking at this place saying, man, they have arrived. This is awesome. But then they start, messing things up. And eventually, after being in this spot for a long time, this superpower from the east named Babylon rises up, and they march on Jerusalem, and they rip the walls down to shreds. They burn the doors and the gates to cinders, and they walk in and they take the temple or the place where they worship and find their identity in God. They destroy their temple, and they take the people and they enslave them and they send them off into a foreign land to live as exiles. And they leave the poor to fend for themselves in the rubble of what was. Come Nehemiah, some 70 years after that moment, Nehemiah steps up. He was not one who grew up there. He grew up in the foreign land, but he heard all the stories. He knew where he came from. He knew who he was, where his roots were. And Nehemiah works his way up through the ranks of this foreign land to become the king's cupbearer. If you want to know more information about cupbearer, just go to Bible Project and their Facebook page and watch their cool Nehemiah video. It gives you a great history lesson on it. It does more than hold the king's coffee. I'll let you know that. He is like administrative assistant to the king. So this is a really high up position. So he's very successful. He's got some comforts. He's all good. And one day, this guy from his hometown, Jerusalem, shows up. And Nehemiah wants to know, what's it like back there? I haven't heard news from the hometown in a long time. So tell me about it. What's it like? What's going on? And this guy says, it's bad, man. We're in bad shape. The things over there are awful. Conditions are appalling. The wall of Jerusalem is in rubble, and the city gates are in cinders. Nehemiah, instead of being offended and posting stuff on his Facebook wall about how much of an idiot everyone else is in the world, which is how I want to respond most of the time when I hear about tragedy. It's like, oh, you idiots, if you just read this infographic, everything would be better. It's like, that's going to fix it. He doesn't do that. He doesn't respond or react. He actually is a man who weeps. Nehemiah, this heart is revealed in this moment. And he says, when I heard this, I sat down and I wept. I mourned for days, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. He doesn't kind of do that reaction of, well, if those idiots would have just listened to my dad back in the day and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't say any of that. He sees the reality of the situation and he weeps. And he spends time fasting and praying and mourning for the reality of what is. Doesn't try to paint a pretty picture out of it or anything. Oh, everything will be fine. God works everything for the good. He doesn't do any of that. No cliches are commented. He just weeps at the reality of the situation. And he takes a risk at this point. After he's mourned and wept and prayed, he gets some wisdom. He gathers himself and he goes before the king. And he does the riskiest move of his life. He frowns in front of the king. Now you're kind of thinking like, what's the big deal? Well, if you frowned in front of the king, he could have your head cut off and stuck on a pole in his front yard. He was that ruthless. He was not a nice guy. So he's taking a huge risk at this point to frown and look sad in front of the king. And the king says, what's your problem? Takes a deep breath, says a prayer, and relays the story. This is what my hometown is like. The place where my family's buried, my roots, is in shambles. The place, just 70 years ago, y'all destroyed and ripped apart and tore to shreds and declared victory. Yeah, I'd like to right that wrong that you did. Holy smokes. Like, he could be killed right now. He's done the most riskiest thing ever. And the king says, what do you want me to do about that? I'm sure he's thinking, would you maybe let me go back? He throws it out there. Let me go back to my hometown? You can do that. Nehemiah, he's got, thank you. Courage is the word I wanted to use. I almost said something else previous experience. He's got some big courage. And not only does he take these risks and say, could you send me back and so I can right the wrong that y'all did 70 years ago? That was huge. He says, would you possibly fund it? Whoa! Holy cow, Nehemiah. There is some courage there. Not only are you going to ask all these things, but hey, would you provide me the finances and funding to go back there and letters of recognition saying that you're the one who sent me back there and an envoy to protect me as I go? And he just asks for the world at this point. And if we miss the miracle of the king's response of this portion, we're going to totally miss how awesome God is in this scenario, because the king says, yeah, sure. Why not? Have fun. We'll see you soon. So Nehemiah sets out, arrives in Jerusalem, and this is what he finds. It says in chapter 2, he finds a city in ruins. He goes to his hometown. The walls that protected it, the gates that kept them safe are in shambles. The poor are scavenging for food and shelter and safety for 70 years. They're not protected from bandits and marauders with the walls being down. And he comes back to scavengers. And he arrives in Jerusalem, and he's been there 3 days, and he gets up in the middle of the night, and he walks around. And it says, the rubble was so bad that my donkey couldn't even traverse across it. That's how bad things were. I don't know if you all know about donkeys, but donkeys are pretty cool. Donkeys can make their way through things. That's why they take donkeys. But his donkey could not get through the rubble. It was that bad. So it's horrible. Things are awful. And he walks around looking at it, and I'm sure he's thinking to himself, there's no way. There is just no way. This is too far gone. It is too late. It is too awful. But he gets up the next day, and he does something different. Instead of thinking it's too far gone, It's too awful. It's too much ruin. He gets up and he says something else. He says, well, what if? What if we do rebuild these walls? And out of this rubble, a vision is birthed for something new, for something amazing. You see, you might look at the rubble of your life. You could look at how the walls of your life and everything you have built have come crashing down. Maybe it was years ago and you never rebuilt. Maybe it's most recently. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe you've been through divorce. Maybe you're abused. Maybe you've struggled with addiction. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you've done career switches. Maybe you think you've totally messed up your life and chosen the wrong path and you're now not where you want to be. Maybe you're in the midst of the rubble of your life and you're thinking what Nehemiah must have thought back then, there's no way that I could ever rebuild my life. It's too far gone. It's too late. Maybe you need someone in your life to say those magical words, well, what if? What if you did rebuild something? What if you did start fresh? What if you did try to rebuild your life, even though it's in ruins and shambles? What if you did? That's what Nehemiah does. You see, all of the material was already there. The rubble is there. The people are there. Anyone could have at any point in those 70 years said, you know what? Maybe we better rebuild these walls. But nobody thought to do it. Nobody had the courage to do it. It would have defied the king. But nobody thought we can do this except for Nehemiah. And he goes and he births this vision in them. And he says it this way. Face it, we're in a bad way here. I'm quoting directly, by the way. Jerusalem is a wreck. Its gates are burned up. Come, let's rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and not live with this disgrace any longer. What if someone came to you and asked you that what if question? It's the most powerful question someone can ask. You're thinking, okay, here's the reality of my life right here. Yeah, I got some rubble, got some ruins. This is not what I want it to be. Maybe it was slowly deteriorating over time, and maybe it was just one big crash. Who knows how it got to where it is now? But you're looking at your life and you're saying, you know, what it is now is not exactly what I envisioned it to be. It's kind of a mess. And someone comes up to you and they ask you that question, but what if? What if you did step up, step in, and take the raw material that's already available in your life? What if you already have what it takes and everything that you need to get started? What if it's already there? What if you rebuilt your life? What would that look like? Then we start imagining what could be. Well, yeah, what if something changed? What if I took this rock and put it back on that other one, and then tomorrow I did the same, and then tomorrow I did the same, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day? You would make progress. You would see change. You'd be acting like a hero, because that's what heroes do. When you decide to take back authority from cynicism, from despair, from hopelessness, when you decide to take your life back from those things, take the authority of who has say of the what if vision from those things, and you hand it back into the hands of God, things change. Things happen. Yeah, opposition is going to arise, though. I mean, how many addicts have you heard talk? They gave up drinking, and then they had to give up their friends because their friends were all of a sudden threatened because, oh my, if so-and-so gives up drinking, that means I have to step up to my life too and take responsibility and try to rebuild things that I don't want to try because I might fail. See, when you decide to take authority back from despair and hopelessness and cynicism and bitterness and anger, and you say, you know what? What if something different happened in my life? What if we could rebuild this thing? Opposition is going to arise immediately because you start threatening the people around you, their complacency, and their safety nets of inaction start being threatened, and they say, oh my, if you start acting, then I might. And people are afraid of their own strength and potential because they feel safe in inaction, because if I try, I might fail. And then it'll reveal to the whole world that I don't have what it takes. But what if you do? What if you could step up to life as it is now, with what you have now, and start to rebuild something? What would that look like? I would say it would be amazing. Opposition's gonna arise. You know how you respond to people when opposition arises and they start saying, you can't do that. I know who you are. I know where you've been. I know how you've screwed up. I know where your flaws lie. I know all those people that start to oppose you because they feel threatened by your own productivity and your potential and you stepping into those shoes. Those people that feel that threatening thing, they're gonna, you know how you respond to them? You say, you don't understand. Of course it doesn't look like it should right now. Of course I haven't arrived. Of course I haven't perfectly rebuilt everything, but I'm building something. Yeah. I am building something. That's what Nehemiah says, because he was rebuilding his wall, and all of a sudden these people from the outside, they start opposing him, they start attacking him, they start threatening him, they start bribing him. And his response, no, you don't understand. We're building something. Yeah. It's going to take a while. We're building something. And it doesn't look exactly how it should right now, but I'm building something. That's how you respond to the opposition. Even the opposition within your own heart that says, you're a loser. You shouldn't be doing that. You can never do that. You say, you know what? You need to be quiet, inner critical self. I'm building something. Right. And it doesn't look like I want it to. And I don't know if I have exactly what it takes to be where I need to be, but I have what it takes today to take on what today needs to bring. I will handle this day with everything that I have in me, and I will go to bed tired from handling this day. Not inoculated, but tired, because I took on the day, and I accomplished what I needed to today. Maybe it was just one single stone, but I put that stone on there. And I'm building something. That's what you got to say when opposition arises, when you start to take authority back from all of those places that hold it captive. And you can, with God, co-create something in your life that is beautiful. In your soul, in this community, in Central Michigan, when you start taking authority of your life and saying, God, let's do something with this. Something beautiful happens. Something amazing happens. And that's how you respond. You say, you know what? I'm building something. Of course, it doesn't look like what it should look like. Of course, I haven't reached where I should be. That's because I'm building something. But we don't use that as an excuse of inaction or fear. So you got to dismiss all the distractions that come. I like what Ralph Waldo Emerson says. A hero is not braver than an ordinary person, but they are brave 5 minutes longer. Isn't that amazing? There is nothing more brave about somebody else. They're feeling the exact same fear that you're feeling right now, but the heroes are the ones who stick with it 5 minutes longer than the rest of us. The heroes are the ones that are going to say, here I stand, I can't do anything else. I have to stand right here. This I know to be true. That's what heroes do. They refuse sidetracks. They don't want to get caught up in sidetracks and distractions and bunny trails. And by doing these things that Nehemiah did, they overcome the obstacles right in front of them. They can overcome the obstacles. It says here in verse 15, it says that the wall was finished, and it took 52 days. And when all our enemies heard of the news and all the surrounding nations saw it, our enemies totally lost their nerve, and they knew that God was behind this work. 52 days. Most of that was spent with sword in hand and doing this. Because there was armies ready to attack. And they pick up a stone with this hand and put it up here. And they had a sword in this hand just in case the opposition arose. So you might look at your health, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your relational health. You might look at your marriage. You might look at your career, your relationship with your kids. You might look at your life and think there is absolutely no way to rebuild this. There's no way that I can build this to be what I need it to be what I want it to be. But here's the crazy thing. All these people that rebuilt the wall of Jerusalem, they didn't go out into the quarries and bring a bunch of materials there that was already at their feet. All the raw material of who you need to become is already within you.
That's good.
All of the raw material to become who God has made you to be resides in you right now. You just need someone to ask you the what if question. What if all obstacles have been disarmed by Christ and not even death itself can touch your soul? What if? What if nothing has any power or authority over you to dictate your value, your identity, but the God who loves you so dearly that he gave his son for you? What if you are not too far gone ever, and it's never, ever too late to start building something? Put your hands out like this. I want to do a prayer with you guys. And now raise one higher. In this hand, the lower hand, I want you to imagine your life as it is, right now, as it is. This is what is real about you, right? It's totally real. You're not exactly where you think you need to be. You're not exactly who you think you need to be. And you don't have all of the things you think you need in order to get to here. Very true statement. Those are real. There are obstacles, and it's not easy. But this hand now, this is the you that God has made. This is the you that has overcome all obstacles. This is the you that is free in Christ, that is filled with the Spirit of the Creator of the universe, empowering you and giving you vision. This is you. This is what Christ has declared true about you. And what is real and what is true don't always match up, do they? The Christian existence, the Christian life, looks at the life and says, we need to take what is real about us and our world and what Christ has made true through his death and resurrection, and we need to make what is real true. We need to make what is true real. We need to make the two one, bring them together. And I want you this week, once a day, do this prayer where you say, this is where I am, this is who God has declared me to be, and where I could go, and what Christ has made true, and I want them to be one and integrated in one direction towards seeing the kingdom of God expand here in Central Michigan. What is real and what is true? Because it's time to raise the rest of your life up to meet where you actually are. And Christ has filled you with all of the power and given you all of the raw material in your soul already to do that. So engage your imagination this week and think, what would that look like if what was true became what is real? And you're going to find this. Yes, opposition is going to arise and obstacles are going to present themselves. And I want to remind you to be patient with yourself because you're building something. And it takes time, and it takes perseverance, and it takes patience. And my prayer for you this week is that you'll be braver 5 minutes longer than you think you need to be. And you will see heroism as a verb come into action in your everyday, regular existence. Let's pray. It takes extreme courage, God, to make real what you have made true. God, I ask that you would give us the courage to face life like Nehemiah did. That you would give us the courage to imagine a life that is different from the one it is now. Because we have taken authority back from cynicism and fear and bitterness and anger and hopelessness, and we've used our imagination to engage in hope, to prayerfully engage in what life could be here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, if we stepped up to the plate with what actually is and who we actually are. God, help us to be braver 5 minutes longer than we need to be this week. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.